Using a thick throwbar wire is what makes the BullFrogs work so well. It gives them a lot of torque to make sure that the switch points are firmly held up against the stock rails. This comes at a bit of a price though when you want to use BullFrogs with turnouts of a smaller scale. I've got here an N-scale turnout, and you can see that the throwbar tie used in an N-scale turnout isn't a whole lot bigger than the size of the wire on the BullFrog. You can see that by the time you drill a hole in that throwbar tie that's going to accommodate the wire in the BullFrog, the tie might fall apart. You can go to a smaller wire in the BullFrog. This is a 37 thou diameter wire that we supply in the BullFrogs. Looks like 36, but it's actually 37. You can go down to a smaller diameter wire, maybe a 25 thou wire. And for most turnouts it'll work, but you lose the advantage of the nice torque with the switch machine when you go down to a smaller wire. But there's a simple solution to that, and I'm going to show you how to do it in this video. What I have here is a small piece of, what is this? Looks like 18 thou, 19 thou diameter piano wire. And this would clearly go through that no problem. We can drill a small hole in the throwbar tie and we can get this wire up through that hole without weakening the tie. But if we wanted to use this whole wire on the BullFrog, you can see the difference in size between the stock wire and this wire, and this one is quite weak, so it wouldn't really function too well. One way to make this work is to fasten a small length of fine diameter wire to the end of the large diameter wire that's on the BullFrog. That way you get the best of both worlds. You get the strength of the large diameter throwbar wire, and then the small wire to go up through the throwbar tie on the turnout. And this is fairly easy to do. I've got a piece here that I've already done this to, and it's just a matter of wrapping the two wires with some fine stranded copper wire and then just soldering it all together, and this will provide a very strong bond between the two and make that it's not going to break off or anything. And it gives you a small length of wire at the end to go up through your throwbar tie. To start with, I mount the BullFrog on the layout and run the wire right up through the road bed, and then cut the wire off at the top of the road bed. That way I know where I need the larger wire to end and the smaller wire to begin. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm actually going to trim this back a little bit because this was flush with the top of the road bed. So I'm just going to cut this back, well, maybe a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, and then I'll fasten the smaller diameter wire onto it. I just nip that off with a pair of pliers. Now you can do that. Normally you can't cut this piano wire with a pair of pliers, but the wire that we supply with the BullFrog isn't like normal piano wire. It is cuttable with pliers. And once I've cut it, I like to polish it up a little bit, and that helps the solder take a little bit better onto the wire. There, now that's polished up a little bit, and that'll help us solder. I'm going to cut a small length of the fine diameter wire as well, and I'm going to cut more than I need because I can trim this to length afterwards. So now we're just going to join those two together and wrap it with some fine diameter wire. To wrap it with, I just take a length of just simple hookup wire. This is some 24 gauge stranded wire, like that. And I've stripped off a long strip of the insulation, and I'm just going to cut off one nice small strand of this wire. Okay, so now I've got a little length of this wire, and what I'm going to do, can be a little bit fiddly, is hold these two pieces together like that, and then just wrap some of this wire around the two. To make the job a little easier, I'm using a pair of tweezers. That way I can keep the wire nice and tight as I wrap, and just work my way along the length of the wire like that. Okay, and all the two wires are wrapped together. Now I'm just going to apply some flux and solder this together. Now, soldering two pieces of piano wire together can be a little bit tricky, but using this fine wire inside makes the soldering job go a lot easier, because that wire takes solder a lot better. So I'm just going to blob on some flux on both sides. Not being too conservative here, I'm really kind of laying it on thick. I'm just using Just using the regular solder and the regular flux, all the same stuff we use for soldering fixtures together, or turnouts, and just applying some heat. You notice I'm applying the heat on the back side and putting the solder on the front. That way I know that the solder is going to really want to wick all the way around. Creates a nice solid bond, just like that. Kind of got out of the shot here. See how nicely that's flowed in there? Now if I was trying to get the solder to stick to the wires, the actual piano wire, it wouldn't do it very well. It'd be very difficult. But because I've got this wire wrapped onto it, it allows it to form a very nice bond. We'll let that cool off for a second, and then we'll clean it up. Just taking the carbon off it with a wire brush, mostly for neatness sake. There, now we've got a small diameter wire soldered onto the large diameter wire. And this small wire can be fed up through a very tiny hole in the throwbar tie. And yet we still have the advantage of the strength of the large diameter wire. And that's on there solid, but you don't got to worry about this ever breaking off. That's not going nowhere. There we go. Simple solution to the problem.